We are to recite the whole Quran cover to cover over a period of 1 lunar month, and hence need to determine which is the first juz and which is the second, etc. We have to direct our attention to the way the Quran is divided. We know that the angel Gabriel came to the Prophet at intervals over a period of 23 years, while conveying to his heart revelations of the Quran. Some of the revelations comprised short passages, while others were quite long. The angel would instruct the blessed Prophet concerning the location where each revelation had to be inserted in the book. This video is not concerned with the chronological sequence of revelations of the Quran. Rather, we direct attention to the order in which the Quran was divided into suwar, plural of surah, and the location chosen in the Quran for each surah. The first 11 suwar of the Quran, after Surah Al Fateha, but with the significant exception of Surah Al Anfal, are all long suwar. This cannot have been by accident. There must be a reason for this arrangement of the suwar of the Quran. Why are all the long suwar located at the very beginning of the Quran? Why is the longest surah of all in the Quran, i.e., Surah Al-Baqarah, with 286 verses, located at the very beginning of the Quran? The last 18 suwar of the Quran, on the other hand, are all about 10 verses in length. Why does the Quran end with short suwar? And why are the shortest suwar of all, i.e., Surah Al-Kawthar and Surah Al-Nasr, with only 3 verses each, located almost at the very end of the Quran? Finally, why is there a general continuous reduction in the length of the suwar of the Quran from the beginning until its very end? We remind our viewers that it is not a matter of any significance to the subject matter of the video that there are minor differences in the number of verses located in some suwar of the Quran. The differences have arisen because the numbering of the verses was not divinely revealed. But there is a significant problem which must be addressed in the context of our recognition that the suwar of the Quran continuously decline in size from the beginning to the end. The problem is that there is a surah which is located before Surah Al-Baqarah, and it is only 7 verses in length. By virtue of its very short length of only 7 verses, that surah should logically be located at the end, rather than at the beginning of the Quran. Why then is there such a short surah located at the beginning of the Quran? That surah is Al Fateha. Allah Most High has declared of the Quran that it is a noble and generous recitation which is located in a book which is guarded and protected. Al-Waqi'ah 77-78. Behold, it is a truly noble recitation, conveyed unto man in a well-guarded book is precisely because the book is guarded and protected that the reader needs a key with which to open the doors which guard the book from all sides. Fusilat. Nothing false can ever penetrate this book to corrupt it, neither openly nor in a stealthy manner, since it has come down from one who is wise and ever to be praised. Our conclusion is that the name of the surah, i.e. Al-Fatiha, indicates that it has a role to play in opening the doors to the Quran whenever the Quran is to be recited. The Quran confirms that this surah has this special status and role which makes it different from the rest of the surah, since it has to be constantly recited whenever the Quran is to be recited. It does so in this verse which separates the surah from the rest of the Quran. Al-Hijr 87. Indeed, we have bestowed upon these 7 verses to be constantly recited, and in addition, this sublime Quran. Why does Allah Most High make mention in the verse quoted before first of Surah Al Fateha and then of the Quran? Our interpretation of this declaration is that Surah Al Fateha should first be recited whenever we wish to recite the Quran. We can now safely recognize that the first surah of the Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah, after the key which opens the Qur'an, the constantly repeated Surah Al Fateha. Allah Most High has declared that He divided the Qur'an so that it might be recited at intervals. Al-Isra 106. This is a Qur'an which we have divided into parts as suwar, plural of surah. We have done so in order that you might recite it to the people at intervals and in conformity with those divisions as suwar. We also sent it down part by part. The implication is that Allah Most High has divided the Qur'an into suwar so that they may function as parts, to be recited whenever we wish to recite it cover to completion. Such recitation can be at intervals of daily recitation for the entire Qur'an to be completed in one lunar month, and this is the way that Allah Most High recited the Qur'an Himself through the angel Gabriel during the month of Ramadan. Of course, the interval can also be for reciting the whole Qur'an once every 20 days or every 10 days or every week. This video does not explain the methodology for reciting the Qur'an other than once a month. Allah Most Wise placed the longest surah of all at the beginning of the Qur'an for a specific reason and purpose, and our view is that He did so to test us and to force us to think. Do we have to recite the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah as our first part on the first day of the month if we are reciting daily to complete the recitation in one lunar month? Or can we subdivide the surah into parts for recitation over a period of time which would extend beyond that first day of the lunar month? The answer to this is crucially important for locating the correct way in which the Qur'an is to be recited over a period of one lunar month, or even less than that. Al-Qiyamah 18. And when we have recited it, when we have delivered through the angel Gabriel the way that it should be recited, you must follow that way of reciting the Qur'an. Prophet Muhammad never subdivided Surah Al-Baqarah into parts for daily recitation. Indeed, Allah Most High has prohibited such subdivision of surahs, including Surah Al-Baqarah, for daily recitation of the Qur'an. He did so when He declared in Surah Al-Hijri that He sent Prophet Muhammad as a warner, and He then went on to warn those who arbitrarily subdivide the Qur'an for recitation that they will have to answer to Him on Judgment Day. Al-Hijr 92-93. Say to them, O Muhammad, I am a warner who warns you, and I do so in a manner which is clear and without ambiguity, warning you of divine anger which descends on the Muqtasimin who divide the Qur'an arbitrarily into bits and pieces. Allah Most High then took an oath. By thy Rabb, O Muhammad, I will certainly hold them to account for what they have done. Hence they will all have to answer to me one day for having divided the Qur'an into bits and pieces. Here then is the first explanation for the longest surah of the Qur'an being placed at the very beginning of the Qur'an. It was put in that position in order to test us to see which of us would respect Allah's division of the Qur'an into suwar, and would therefore recite the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah on the first day of the month, and which of us would sinfully break up the surah into parts for daily recitation. There is another implication of the longest surah of the Qur'an being placed at the beginning of the Qur'an, and all the long suwar also placed at the beginning of the Qur'an, while all the short suwar are located at the end, and this is subsequently explained in this video. One of the most important things that we have done in this video is to warn that the Qur'an cannot be arbitrarily subdivided as part for daily recitation. Hence, whether we are reciting the Qur'an to complete the recitation in one lunar month, or even less than that, the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah must be recited on the first day of the lunar month. Allah Most High placed the longest surah of the Qur'an at the very beginning of the Qur'an to test us to see whether we would respect the walls which He placed in the Qur'an and, as a consequence, would recognize the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah as the first part to be recited by those who would khatam or complete the Quran in one lunar month. If you want to recite the Quran using our methodology, check the description of this video.